Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 191st New Social Environment. I'm Emily Dean, a production assistant at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a radical poetry reading curated by Chris Martin. Every Wednesday, a guest curator invites a number of poets who they admire to the NSE to read political poetry. We are so thrilled to have poets Farid Matuk, Hannah Emerson, Lauren Russell, and Adam Wolfond here with us today. To begin, I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Wappinger, Canarsie, Munsee, and Lenni Lenape people of the Delaware Nation and Shinnecock Indian Nation, the traditional owners of Lenape-Hoking, the unceded land and waters on which we stand. Finally, the Brooklyn Rail stands in solidarity with the uprisings in response to the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Nina Pop, David McAddy, James Scurlock, Jamel Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Rhea Milton, Dominique Remy Fells, Toyin Salau, Walter Wallace Jr., and countless others we have lost to white supremacy and police violence in this country, and acknowledge that justice will come from the streets, from the nation demanding accountability, and refusing to move on until Black Lives Matter in the eyes of the state. Before I introduce our curator, we'd like to begin with a brief moment of silence. Thank you. And now to introduce today's curator. Chris Martin is a neurodivergent poet and educator whose fourth book of poetry, Things to Do in Hell, is fresh from Coffee House Press. His first book of essays, May Tomorrow Be Awake, on poetry, autism, and our neurodiverse future, is forthcoming from Harper One. He is the co-founder and executive director of Unrestricted Interest, an organization dedicated to helping neurodivergent learners transform their lives through writing. He lives in Minneapolis, where he also teaches at Hamline University and Carleton College. Chris, take it away.
All right, thank you, Emily. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm really happy to be sharing a little time with all of you out there in the audience, but also and especially these poets gathered today. When the Rail first reached out and asked if I would be interested in convening some poets around political poetry, I had been like literally the week before awakened in the middle of the night with this like phrase that kept running through my head that I had to kind of write and rewrite until I could get back to sleep. It took me like an hour. It was like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up with it, and it was for us to survive, the goal of society must cease to be the freedom of the individual and come to be the liberation of the people. And I felt like that was immediately when I thought about political poetry, I was like, I want to hear the poetry of liberation, and kind of that idea of freedom being something you can claim, but liberation being something you have to live. And the poets that you're going to hear from today are poets that have been mentors for me on how to live liberation, both in their work and in their persons. And so it's a great joy to be with them today. I get to be with Adam and Hannah every week. We work together through Unrestricted Interest to write. But I'm especially excited, and it warms my heart to be with Farid and Lauren, two of my favorite poets and people who are coming from different parts of the United States. We're all coming from different parts, and then even Toronto for Adam and Estee. But I'm really excited to be with everyone and hear what everyone has to read.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for bringing everyone together today. First, we will hear from Farid Matuk. Farid Matuk teaches in the MFA program at the University of Arizona, is the author of the poetry collections This Is a Nice Neighborhood from Letter Machine Editions 2010, and The Real Horse from University of Arizona Press 2018. His work has been supported with grants and residencies from UC Berkeley, the Headland Center for the Arts, and the Lannan Foundation. Matuk's book arts collaboration with Colombian artist Nancy Friedemann Sanchez is forthcoming in 2021 from Singing Saw Press. And I'm passing you the mic now.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to the Rail for hosting, and thank you to Chris for gathering, and to the other poets for being part of it. We were invited to read some of our own work along with the work of others. So I created a set where I'm going to be alternating between some pieces by the visual artist Kara Walker. Around 2007, 2008, Kara came out with this project called Bureau of Refugees. And I'll read just a little bit from her artist note at the beginning. Because language is the dominant force behind the creation of these pictures. The third and final element of the show is comprised solely of text. Dominating one wall of the gallery, the 52 paintings are the result of a catastrophic disregard for figure or ground by a malefactor artist. Stripped of color, texture, and generosity, each card contains text that exposes, denies, or conflates the language of the perpetrator with that of the victim. Each one a stream of consciousness work painted with Sumie ink, each one original. None of these texts is restricted to the Black body, necessarily, although that is my primary point of reference. Mostly they reflect the news of the moment. They fetishize the body in peril and the perverse glee that can be had in making art out of history. And I want to be really clear that in bringing this work together, Walker's work and some of the pieces I'll read from my own, that I'm not interested in equivalencies. I'm curious about the responsibilities we might owe one another across the frames of nation and gender and racial order. So Kara Walker writes and paints, and just so you can get a sense of what these pieces look like. Kara Walker paints. The picture is too big to draw. Global jihad, and how can colored folks get on the winning side without giving up their hard-won right to jeans that fit and commercials that feature ordinary Black spokesmodels, to be faux Afrocentric and pro your Black ass at the same time. And I'll read from this forthcoming project, Redolent, that's made in collaboration with Nancy Friedemann Sanchez. It begins with an epigraph. It's all somewhere else. No one lives in a country. Alice Notley. All right, you light-headed fathers. I'd ask for rain. Wait until January because I was born with a sash. This is where you poop, I'm told. This is a drawer for aftershave. Knowing things, systems that take hundreds of years, earns harrowing honors that get smeared. Some of it sticks. I mean, you could make believe a thing like a pine cone opening. But for daddy's spit, is it also the tree's many a small mouth? I hear of sovereignties. I hear of the first world. But having survived facing off with the progeny, ancestors, I'm told, are no prophylactics against it. In our bodies, there are no borders, the new Aeromexico ad says. So here come the killers and their rhetors. John Bolton, Elliot Abrams, Juan Zarate of the Foundation for the defense of democracies. Here, I'm told, is a song. George Zimmerman, my countrymen. Kara Walker paints. Consider for a minute the delicious crime of raped 14-year-old Iraqi girl, family murdered by US soldiers, a simple matter of need. Gang rape is always about need. Military code of honor, don't tell, don't ask, the incomprehensible last word of an invisible child. Rain transit. How much of pure abstraction is what's left of a gesture after bracing against its touch? My ghost story is just a voice so close at my ear that its pushed air, not its words, woke me to an empty bedside. But the internet really does have a boy child of faith, pressing up to kiss the Pope on the mouth, photographed circa 1980, with every near problem of that scene wholly pressed onto that scene. It won't be a story unless I make it that. When what I have is the glowing of a name, hearing it for the first time at a family dinner long after my mother's death, condensing her rapist into a ghoul, iterative and real. I mean, she was always her animus, running from him across countries, gilding the days tender and light. How could I hold to it? Aware of the sky, reedy with sun, raining space, latticed and empty, of Air Force traffic. Each next country and word curls around its own alibi, and the Holy Father is still imminently kissable. Trying to see at the speed things invite me to see, available to be judged by feel more than by faith. The child need not be a boy, but the gesture stays, like a tunnel stays, after shuttling the idea of men in the name of the Holy Ghost back into its nearest mouth. It's raining inside, distant, repeating. We might seem a river. Kara Walker paints. Piled naked prisoners' asses in pyramid of simulated group sex, because pyramid of real sex would have started a riot. This last poem I'll read is called Scale Up. It's for Fadi Judah. 2 notes. There's a reference to NoFap. It's a slang for the idea that offered by the Proud Boys, who are a proto-fascist group, very much active in the United States today. And the Proud Boys argue very directly that men should not masturbate. That's what NoFap means. In order to control their own sexual desires, which is the first step to controlling women, which is the next step in controlling the household, which is the next step in controlling the state. And lastly, there's an artistic process of working with resin, coming from, it's an indigenous tradition of artisans working with resin in Colombia, which is what Nancy Friedemann Sanchez works with. She was my collaborator on this project. And that gets referenced and explained in the poem. Scale Up for Fadi Judah. dignified or bruised with looking, at an inflatable swan in my pool, large as our times, dares all ancestors to scale up. Desert heat waves folding air forward and back into a fixed point, a hold on our mother's adulthood like it's the thing from which most of time will run away. The purest gold rings I inherit, my grandmother's bracelets stamped with the scales of snakes. We had so much, ideas, tasks that don't really ask for names, to burn in some America's idea of presentness. Peeled cheap rubies from my mother's ring, loosely given in a pouch. Terribly enjoined to the bros of first settlement, every day, still in their dedicated habit for one another, men love me. Ask about my American sentence shapes, like barefoot, sweet thing, Proud Boys, NoFap, the New York Times, of people's bad examples of transiting elements. Now crush the buds in the old way, in boiling water, to make the resin stretched with a friend into thinning sheets from our mouths. In fingers comes a lacquer, where to render one of the pretender gods. Scaled to look like layers of depth, the men heard they wanted to see. If our treatments could rescue local wood into a high gloss forevering, exactly like the phrase, cultivate your power, brings news to each next theater of war, resting in my nerve to write about it. Tear gas by way of drone, and the lacquered frame of my mirror wanting to be polished. Now say, enjoyable morning, to have left a nation's bed, shining, basically eagle-shaped, tasting of a sugar that delays what's sweet. Sorry, not sorry, for the dirt on my feet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farid. That was incredible. Next, we will hear from Hannah Emerson with Kathleen Emerson, her communication partner. Hannah Emerson is a non-speaking autistic poet from Lafayette, New York, on the historical land of the Onondaga Nation. Her writing has been featured in Bomb Magazine, The Brooklyn Rail, 9 Mile, and Unearthed. Her first chapbook of poems, You Are Helping This Great Universe Explode, was published by Unrestricted Editions in 2020. And I just passed you the mic.
Great. And Chris, do you want to say anything? Or ask Hannah if she wants to say anything?
Yeah, Hannah, would you like to say anything in the way of introduction?
PLESSETRYSTOKISMOMENTITIS. You got it. SSINGUSTO. Got it. DAYYESYES.
I just put that in the chat for everyone. Right. I'm sharing Giveness first, right?
Yes.
So I will be reading Hannah's poems. And the first is from this chapbook, which is one of my favorite books on earth. And I'm gonna take just a second to put it in the chat so that you can get to it. And I'll be reading what in some ways is the title poem, and it's called Giveness. Denotes the great kissing of great humans to get unusually going to the heart of the giving to the person who needs to be forgiven. Try to forgive helpful thought, helpful gesture, to give to the person who needs forgiveness. The king keeps the jester there to remind him of the helpful freedom of being great fool. The queen is always watching these two fools. Oh yes, great idea of Mother Earth trying to forgive the fools. The poets here to keep telling the truth of the keeping the life going to survive. Poets give grounding in helpful knowing the voice of the universe. Please listen to the poet, because only way to freedom from the fools. Just keep the fools inside us, loving, fool, forgive him. It is okay to be the fool you are, helping this great universe explode.
And then Hannah chose Crude Foyer by Wallace Stevens. Thought is false happiness. The idea that merely by thinking one can or may penetrate, not may, but can, that one is sure to be able, that there lies at the end of thought a foyer of the spirit in a landscape of the mind in which we sit and wear humanity's bleak crown, in which we read the critique of paradise and say it is the work of a comedian, this critique, in which we sit and breathe, an innocence of an absolute, false happiness, since we know that we use only the I as faculty, that the mind is the I, and that this landscape of the mind is the landscape only of the I, and that we are ignorant men, incapable of the least minor, vital metaphor content at last there when it turns out to be here.
This is a very new poem of Hannah's called The Hero is Here. Please try to kiss the rhythm that makes the kissing, loving flow of the flooding blood intersect the making of the flow of great making of the energy that flows into my body, giving me life that I need to be the poet that I came here to be, so I can, yes, yes. Please help me help you by becoming the flow that is making us kiss this kissing, loving life that is our nothing life, that is a gift, yes, yes. Please try to kiss the energy that is the kissing of the energy of the nothing that is, the kissing, jutting life into something that is, inverting you into the first beat of your heart that began this yearning that you kissed to become the rhythm that is your portal to this life. Yes. Please try to get that this is the ultimate kissing, kissing, kissing gift that the universe gives you. Yes, yes. Please try to be heroic and not give it away to unconscious mess. Yes, yes. Please try to understand that you need to do this using your energy to go to the light that you are. Yes. Please try to go to the kissing that is trying to help you kiss this indescribable kissing job that you make your life today. Yes.
And then Hannah chose Coping by Audre Lorde. It has rained for 5 days, running. The world is a round puddle of sunless water where small islands are only beginning to cope. A young boy in my garden is bailing out water from his flower patch. When I ask him why, he tells me, young seeds that have not seen sun forget and drowned easily.
And then the final poem from the set will be the most recent that Hannah, you wrote this on Monday. Just happy that lovely children are dancing. Love, love, love the rolling hills, kissing, jutting that make my great, great, great rolling dance that I make my life, helping me dance, 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 just dancing my life into being. Yes, yes, yes. Love that the mother is kissing the dancing that kisses me today. Yes, yes. Love the kissing of kissing, loving the air that greets our dance, that kisses the movements that makes the air move with me. Yes, yes, yes. Love the mother kissing us, just happy that lovely children are dancing in the air, kissing lovely nothing as we move to the calling of the wind. Yes, yes, yes. Love the kissing, 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 lovely kissing in the movement that we try to go to on these hills of debris. Yes, yes. Love the dripping of the drops that are our thoughts, trying to cry our very, very, very hell away. Yes, yes. Love the light that is in the yearning that is dripping from the sky. Yes, yes. Love the kissing rain that is the keeper of the kissing thoughts of the sky that cries for us today. Yes, yes. Love the clouds that kiss us into the thoughts that are trying to make this interesting. Yes, yes. Love the drops of rain that just sit on the branch, waiting to be called to dance, dance, dance. Yes, yes, yes. Love, mother, greeting, yearning to help us go to the nothing dance, becoming the freedom that is in the great, great, great drop of the movement, helping us go to the dance, going there dripping with the drowning of our freedom that wants to go to the dance, dance trying to become the dripping dance, dance nothing more. Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Those were so beautiful. Next, we will hear from Lauren Russell. Lauren Russell is the author of Descent from Tarpaulin, Sky Press 2020, and What's Hanging on the Hush from Asada Press 2017. She has received fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, Cave Canem, and the Wisconsin Institute for Creative Writing, and her work appears in various publications, including the New York Times Magazine and the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day. She was assistant director of the Center for African American Poetry and Poetics at the University of Pittsburgh from 2014 to 2016. In the fall of 2020, she joined the faculty of Michigan State University as an assistant professor in the Residential College in the Arts and Humanities, director of the RCAH Center for Poetry. Lauren, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you to the Brooklyn Rail. Thank you to Chris for inviting me. It's such a treat and an honor to get to read with these particular poets. Actually, at this point, I'm thinking of surviving as a political act. And one of the poems that's been helping me make it through is actually from this chapbook that Hannah just presented from, but it's a different poem. So I'm gonna read this one. The Listening World. Say prayer for little things, things that live in deep hurt, feelings, language take to lair. Let it signal God's light, I say for want of light feelings, is my ear deep or deeper? And that's Hannah Emerson once again. Another of the poems I've been thinking about is Yehuda Amihai, Autobiography 1952. And this is another one that I've kept thinking about over the last 9 months. Autobiography 1952, Yehuda Amihai. My father built over me a worry big as a shipyard, and I left it once before I was finished, and he remained there with his big empty worry. And my mother was like a tree on the shore between her arms that stretched out toward me. And in 31, my hands were joyous and small. And in 41, they learned to use a gun. And when I first fell in love, my thoughts were like a bunch of colored balloons, and the girl's white hand held them all by a thin string, then let them fly away. And in 51, the motion of my life was like the motion of many slaves chained to a ship, and my father's face like the headlight on the front of a train, growing smaller and smaller in the distance. And my mother closed all the many clouds inside her brown closet. And as I walked up my street, the 20th century was blood in my veins, blood that wanted to get out in many wars and through many openings. That's why it knocks against my head from the inside and reaches my heart in angry waves. And now in the spring of 52, I see that more birds have returned than left last winter. And I walk back down the hill to my house, and in my room, the woman whose body is heavy and filled with time. When we first went into sort of lockdown in March, I was sitting at the window all the time because I was home all the time, and I noticed that there were so many more birds than I'd ever noticed before. And I wondered if there were actually more birds or if I was just seeing them or noticing them for the first time. And I kept thinking about that poem. I'm going to read a few poems from my new book, Descent. The backstory is several years ago, I acquired a copy of the diaries of my great-great-grandfather, Robert Wallace Hubbard. And he went back to, sorry, I'm telling this story all out of order. He was a captain in Hood's Texas Brigade in the Civil War. And after the end of the Civil War, went back to East Texas and had children by 3 of his former slaves who were also sisters. And one of them was my great-great-grandmother, Peggy Hubbard. And when I acquired these 225 pages of diaries, I started typing them out and became really fascinated by what was being left out and started doing research and writing into that space. So I'm just gonna read a few poems from that project. Dear Robert, dear Redbeard, Dear specter of the great white father, dear slaveholder, dear Confederate captain captured at Gettysburg, dear dispenser of land favors seaman, procreator of 20 children by 3 sisters simultaneously, dear father of the Negro League pitcher, dear farmer, schoolmaster, landlord, hired hand, grave paler, log roller, surveyor, and manure shoveler, dear singer, dear churchman and circus fan, dear reveler at brigade reunions, dear collector of sentimental poems about loneliness and redemption, dear pointy-eared like Lucifer and bearded beyond Rasputin, dear mythical Jim Crow defier, hero of my grandfather's childhood, who took him on the whites-only section of the streetcar. He claimed this really happened, proclaiming, "These are my grandchildren and they're sitting with me." Dear diarist, dear widower, dear lonesome hunger, dear admirer of well-formed women, dear inscrutable in the tintype beside your favorite half-claimed child, dear tallier of payments, debts, work days, weather conditions, neighbors by name and race, dear borer of wells, dear master of omission. Heard a whippoorwill holler this morning for the first time this spring. Heard a whippoorwill holler, all hands choking cotton. Heard a holler, a whimper. Heard a will whip her. Will heard a whip. Whip or will. Will heard, herding hers, whipping herds, sowing oats, whipping whores, stripping cane ore. Whelped her, willed her, a well and a hold, dank of the dark of the hell of the hold. Choking cotton, caught in, a yoke and a pull, stripped and caned for. Heard her holler, caught her, held her hand to the, whipped out your, held her head to the, whipped out the billfold. Heard a whimper this spring, choke door, heard a holler, a hollowed out hold, whipped to a wheelbarrow, hell bent toward a hole, ripped from a, wrapped in a gut wrench sugar hold. Question. So how did the women feel about this? Answer. Don't guess they had no say. Peggy rises out of sleep through the dream called blue, where all her kinfolks are wading through fields of blue. Even her father left in Georgia, her stillborn brother somehow grown, her niece who stumbled into the fire on Christmas Day and died with the vision of her white dress aflame, the aunt or uncle who ran off or was lost forever to the auction block. They are all wearing blue, blue hats, blue shawls, and in the way they sing a song with no words deep from the gut, there is also blue. And bluely she creeps toward them in her calico blue. When now there is a dance, they are partnering for the quadrille, and the man they called Bo Peep cradles a banjo, strikes a tune blue. And her petticoats starched with hominy water and Pris's too. And every time they stop moving for a second, the petticoats pop and Pris giggles, and in Pris's eyes are flecks of blue. The log train shakes her into waking, black then dark blue, and she reaches for her kerchief blue, and she is stumbling toward the cradle blue and cooing shoo shoo to the baby who is hollering now. One Sunday, the preacher prayed, "Lord, let us all go to heaven where there'll be no log train." Hoo, 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 and a clankety clank, whose black smoke curling into the half blue. When the Genographic Project says I am more Scandinavian than African, I don't know how to feel about it. If I went to Denmark in this skin, this smoking cyclone crown of frizz, and declared the findings, who would they convince? I'm told I am more Scandinavian than African, and wonder where this belongs in the half-built book I am no longer living in. Bob Hubbard was always gathering moss for the mudcat chimneys he raised over Polk County. A county surveyor knew where lines bent. Did he leave behind a genetic map? Bob came through and made everybody kin, one of my cousins laughs. From Emma Haynes' History of Polk County, 1937. When the camp was established at Moscow, every house was closed and Negroes paraded up and down the streets. The next morning, 4 Negroes were found hanging to a tree. The Ku Klux Klan would control the Negroes and did to a great extent, but the citizens were kept in constant fear of a Negro uprising. Oh, that people loved peace rather than war. In the book I built, where I no longer live, some nights hummings in the walls, not wind hissing through chinks, but a human song that shifts in sleep and dips into a low diphthong. Peggy. That moon ain't hiding, clouds a shawl, moon's cold as brass tacked upside night's frock. Pin your tears to her, they'll sing like chimes, or ghosts that cry. Sometimes I feel I'm almost gone. Ghosts charred in dead men's lust. Think I'm some fool, got brains of shucks? Since freedom I've been through the toughs. See, one moon casts your shadow twice, once toward the bottom land, once toward the pines. The wind's right smart, but moon, she's sly. Look, lightning bugs, they spark, but they cannot catch fire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was so amazing. Next, we will go back to our curator today, Chris Martin, for some poems.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Hannah and Farid. All right, I'm going to read, I'm going to begin with the title poem from my book, Things to Do in Hell. Things to do in hell. Grab lunch, polish your silver, try a new flavor of yogurt, burn in a lake of fire, smoke some weed, overeat, finally understand some things, talk to Steve, cry out breathlessly, pay the electric bill, go to the aquarium in the mall, worry over the shape and color of your moles, sell out the people you used to call friends, learn how to bake bread, feed the ducks at the lake by the highway, exaggerate your assets, get elected, mull things over, attend a livestock auction, pull down the statues of people who tortured your ancestors, seek employment, knit, regret mostly everything, paint the windows shut, pull down the statues of your ancestors, get down on your knees, read Kierkegaard, pick the kids up from Montessori, lose your appetite, linger, DVR Homeland, imagine that hell is only an abstraction, take another free breath mint, cry out endlessly, blame those closest to you, love even the barest light, pissing through the trees. And that poem was actually inspired by a student of mine who he had this very provocative imagination, and was he tried to kind of put people off from building relationships with him by recounting terrible scenes that involved a lot of burning. And at one point I said, the way you talk about the world, it's like the whole thing's on fire. It's like we're living in hell. And he turned to me and he said, how do we know we're not living in hell? And that broke open my brain and heart. And then that became the book. So I was going to read all these other poems by poets I love. I'll put them into the chat. This was the first one I was going to read. But one of the problems with that one is every time I tried to read it aloud, I would start weeping. So I decided maybe that wouldn't work very well. And then I was going to read this poem, which I really love. And I was going to follow it with this poem, which is fantastic. And in the end, I really love the work of my students so much that I decided I would read some more poems by my students. So I'm going to read a poem by a poet, non-speaking autistic poet with Down syndrome named Sid Ghosh, who lives in Portland. I'm going to read two poems by him. He writes shorter poems. The first is called Malware. And we've been talking about politics recently. And he began one of our sessions by writing, good to ask if you like phony hero Trump. And we had a conversation about that. And then at the end, he wrote, Trump belies the looms of torrents of steely, resolute Tea Party workers venisoning their way through huffing society. So that was one of my favorite. I'm going to put that in the chat so you can read it. There you go. But I'll read first a poem of his called Malware. Go, go, rebel, like a giant, lecture for actors, like never-ending hats for cats, like frogs sitting on logs of steel, like horrid porridge, force-fed, find one thing, and you will be free. I'll put that in the chat too, so you can read it. And I asked him afterwards whether it was a reference to, oh my God, now I'm blanking on his name, Rebel Without a Cause, giant, James Dean. And he said yes, which I loved because his mom had never seen any of the movies. All right, the next one is called Ghosted Gods. And it took me a long time to realize that he was actually referencing like getting ghosted by someone. Ghosted gods, milling everywhere like goat cheese on giant mangled toast, hamming motes of my ghost. Most demigods give profound misery, many managing to float. I feel like that's the most like the deepest cut to the managing class, always attempting to stay afloat. All right, I'm gonna read another poem from this book. Let's see. This is called Lesson. There's an abecedarian poem running throughout the book that actually runs backwards and that uses this repetitive technique to drive it forward. Lesson. What ungodly animals are we? What ungodly billowing does this brain make against the spirit? What ungodly calm this morning assembles the stage for what ungodly drama tonight? And what ungodly ear erases the free music of the forest? What ungodly forgetting has been allowed the helm? What ungodly God swallows the flesh? What ungodly hollow have we dug in our thirst? What ungodly instrument of anxious desire? What ungodly justice is this endless shiver? What ungodly knowledge is this shiver's blur? What ungodly lesson do I imagine in its exaggerated blue? And then I'm going to read Rap, a work by Aman Bukela, who is a 13-year-old non-speaking poet from Toronto. And she has been writing a lot of poems and now raps that, that propel what she calls the neurodivergent revolution. Take a drink of water. All right. This is Ill Thoughts Motioning Peace. Mind treasures motions, blind measures mess. Emotions core thinking fear amplifies distress. Tacit facets in time trapped, muttering back fresh rest at best to mess, mocking reset. Trivial trials revitalize striving, rebellious fights to free our rights, lost acts made pacts with devil's tax, reacting traps, wrapping the practices, outlining the truth. Stuck mind clear as mud, but we're still steady mining the root. Trimming tress piles, stressing files in stolen times, cracking the tracks for packed insight shining. Doomed light streaming, regret mind sight meaning, wasted tasting reset. Define definitions, fist fights clarified and stressed to titrate the mission. Mind treasures motions, blind measures mess. Emotions core thinking fear amplifies distress. The rhythm of my spreading fight, track thoughts to a beat. Mind resilient, stressful accounts, counting doubts, but reshape most mastery define fulfillment. Maddening clocks, tick tock resonating, same as flocks, same as hesitating thoughts tracking the sun, dashing havoc, demystifying fate when the present is stung. Modalities trapping treason in every reason, stock traders trafficking demeanors, nitrate hate hesitate at forbidden gates, mobilizing stories of fate, reinstate moments at stake, casting tribes, incremental bribes that forge storms, pestering strides, wake up to real trimmed streams, freaking tress, tornado of truth, stress, messed, most violent, mocking distress, reset, momentum at stake, casting tribes, incremental scribes that forge storms, illustrating strides, wake up to our realized dreams. Mind treasures motions, blind measures mess, emotions core thinking fear amplifies distress. So that's Aman. Remember, she's 13 years old and she just wrote that. So, all right. The final poem I'll read is called Answers. Whether a trifle or a necessary quotient of now, I can't stop America from overflowing its river of costumes, thousand banked where the final me bursts plural in a tomb of its own making. So of course I wonder whether we need another book of poems by another cis, straight, white, Roth IRA who resembles everything he's come to resent. And then I immediately want to see that question in print. Thank the devil, poetry isn't about answers, isn't minions shopping orthodoxy while the money rolls in. Answers are whatever bursts in plain sight, the falling acorn, hot, black buffalo tongue, thrum of the cicada, gate of the beloved returning from afar. Even the nearest gnat is an explanation, a frenzied period looking for the page, a world-shaped answer. Poetry is about more than about its hands reaching out like an octopus trapped in a wallet. Camouflage ink, the ply of a restless form that simmers with chromatophores, metaphors that don't pause for us to read them to death, swipe and frame, pin and post, stop. There is a child in the rubble, a pension in the hands of a whimsical billionaire, a bundle of estranged rage occupying the planned parenthood and killing indiscriminately. And what does it mean that I don't have to tell you that the man was a man? That I don't have to say it was a white man shooting people who should not be shot in an office dedicated to women's health? So I understand if you have fantasies of women shooting up marble offices where pinstriped men watched over by placid abstracts perpetuate their silently violent economies. Me too. And it doesn't change the fact that our house rule is no guns, even imaginary, even if the television keeps trying to hand our son trigger after trigger far before he can hope to understand what they are. I want the poets and priests to switch places, want Y chromosomes to be the new exclusion for firearm ownership, want $1 million equity ceiling and free preschool, a phalanx of neighbors facing the police, facing each other. When Tito reads a draft of this poem, he replies with an answer in questions drag. What is the brim of want? And what is the trough? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, for those incredible poems. And our last reader today is Adam Wolfond. Adam Wolfond is an 18-year-old non-speaking autistic neurodiverse artist, poet, and university lecturer. His chapbook, In Way of Music, Water Answered Towards Questions Other Than What is Autism, is forthcoming from Unrestricted Interest. He attends high school and is the co-founder of the A Collective, recently renamed Disassembly, in Toronto, where he works in visual art and poetry and collaborates on the PhD dissertation, Neurodiversity in Relation, an Artistic Intra-Ethnography, with Estée Clar at York University in Toronto, Canada, where he lives. Estée Clar holds a PhD in Critical Disability Studies at York University. She is the founder of the former Autism Acceptance Project and its subsequent artistic activist events, and the original blogger at The Joy of Autism. And passing it over to you now.
Yeah, do you want to see? First, some of that stuff is a little out of date, so the dissertation is finished.
Hi. Having a tired day, but my mom will. Read. Today. Hi, having a tired day, but my mom will read today.
Hi, having a tired day, but my mom will read today. Adam and I work together and collaborate. That dissertation is finished. And at our organization, Disassembly, we collaborate with a lot of other artists, poets, and writers. And Adam is talking a lot about paces and ways, and it's incorporated into the artwork. And I think it's the poems that we're going to read about discovering the neurodivergent city that is already there as part of our work. I think it offers a lot of ways of rethinking the systems that I'm hearing in all the poems today of oppression that are oppressing us, that are causing us pain and anguish. So I think I'm gonna not screen share. Adam didn't want me to screen share. So if Chris, you want to put it in the chat, that's up to you. And I'm gonna read the first two poems and Chris will read the third. How would you guide someone to discover the neurodivergent city? I would calmly tell the story about being timed pace of the easy, engineered, amazing talker without speech, and the way the city smells a meaningful tongue of additive, salty ram book of autistic and sensory rally, landing the answers about good neurodiverse city. The objects are calling me to them as the way we are languaging the wanting movement. And the idea of the calm feeling is the waters landing, making less ran, love, to the same place of trees and terrific feeling. Bring the safe, good typing to the neurodiverse city. Bring the good support of having good facilitators. I am also a facilitator of basic understanding of different easy ways of patterning and pasturing and thinking with the earth. I am good at knowing about the facilitation and watching the way measures are in place of how independence is about the person and not about the people. I am good at relating to objects in movement and walking the city of moving parts is the flaneur of neurodiversity. Game in the ways of human superiority offers us little to manage with, and I am baffled by the easy invested game of humanity. The next poem is Money and the End and the Help is important. I think the imbecile Trump is body a very manly attitude of America, and I good at feeling the anxiety of the microphone. The idea of the individual simplifies the meaning, language of fanfare locking the people to money. I really think that we need the ways having clarity of the way easy care for each other manages love. The way I am is always thinking, talking answers, and I want to talk about easy waters of voicing the people other than politics. The waters of voicing feel the need for new living hell of the Trump. Important. Trump is the thinking of hell. Some people simplify the way hell looks, offering the always promise of money. I think that looking cynical bothers me. Money is place of hell. High answers the language beneath love. High has the pleasing potential. I, man of good life, old now, angry at the luster of money. Yammer and talk and the people always demand money. Want the money to be answer to hunger and open with hands of love.
All right. Thank you, Stay. You read those beautifully. I'm going to read a final poem of Adam's called Gaming Rally in Words is the Freedom of Wayfaring Language. I'm going to say that one more time. Gaming Rally in Words is the freedom of wayfaring language. The rocks are the solidity that I think about fathering, but they are lacking the way I talk and think. The rocks are the illusion of easy solidity after the idea of rally words, but they are overgrown with the life of the earth and in want for the relation. The solidarity is the want for the ways really relation seems, move, gaming, the growth, and the questions about talking as the only way management of relation is arranged. The way of lasting, the idea of calling the growth capitalism is going the wrong way, and the growth is entangled as actual falling vine. Fathering has the words darting like arrows, and the parent who nurtures the words to language more thinks like easy lines weighing always the waters of rupture, and thinks dance of relation easing the arrowed direction. The rupture is the way birth happens, and the ways of gaming impossibility. Bathing in the finding is the ways pace is good with the feeling between mother and sometimes good, awesome son. Yes, I am good at thinking average city of words as limiting, naming of the watching of the actual movements as walking sees the world, and the ways freedom wants variety, sanding the ways pace and the time lapses about to calm the endings of actual thoughts that are jumping paces and feel frantic.
Thank you so much, Adam, for those amazing poems. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Farid. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Estee. Thank you, Kathleen. This has been such a beautiful reading. There's a lot of great links and wisdom in the chat today. If anyone wants to download that to return to the links in the future, you can press the little 3 dots above the type message here box. But thank you to everyone also who tuned in today. This October marks the Rail's 20th anniversary and we'll be celebrating all the way into 2021. Please consider making a year-end contribution to keep the Rail and our special projects free, relevant, and independent, like the NSE Lunchtime Series and We the Immigrants Project. Every amount matters to us. Our goal is to double last year's participation and reach 500 donors. So you can check out the chat for more information or ask one of our team. And please join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for Common Ground, a conversation with Dr. Elizabeth Bishop, Regina Anderson, Demarius Dunn, Nicole Hamilton, and Yolanda Sealy Ruiz on the Brooklyn Rail's September guest critics page, World on Fire. The discussion will be led by Rail Special Projects Editor, Nick Bennett. And please join us again next Wednesday for a radical poetry reading curated by Rosa Alcala. You now should all be able to activate your microphone and say goodbye as you leave.
Let's just jump right in.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, all.
Thank you.
Reading, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Adam Estee, so good. Lauren, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Lauren, for beautiful reading. That was so powerful.
Thank you.
Just